Good evening. Welcome to WFUZ-TV, the People's Voice podcast. I'm Blair Castro, here with Thomas Jenkins, and we have a special guest in the studio with us today. It's Miss Gay Valimont, who's running for Florida's 1st Congressional District. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Blair. Thank you.
You are running for the 1st Congressional District in Florida, which I'm very familiar with. I've worked that race for like over a decade now, it seems. It's been a long time. People have been trying to make a difference in that district. It's always, hotly contested. Well, not always hotly contested, but it should be. People seem to really care about it, but then it feels sometimes like we can't seem to make a change. When you ran last time, you were very close. You flipped Escambia County blue, which had never happened before, at least in recent years. So what motivated you to jump in again and try another time?
Well, this time around, I said after the last time that I was not going to run again. It was very taxing, and I tried to give space for other people to run. I tried to make sure that if there was some other Democrat that wanted to try their shot at Jimmy Patronis, that I gave them the space to be able to do that. And a couple people called me and said, I'm considering running. We would love for, to sit down and talk, and I would sit down with them and they'd go, I really don't want to do this. And the second guy was like, please run. And I said, okay, I will. I just couldn't go anywhere in Pensacola or Escambia County without somebody saying, you gave us hope. And so I couldn't let Jimmy run unopposed. And there are too many down ballot candidates for me to support. That we could win some races.
So going back to your background, what got you involved in politics in the first place? Where did this all start?
Yeah. Well, I work in sports medicine for real. I'm an athletic trainer. And that's kind of where I got my toughness from, I suppose. But working in predominantly Black schools in downtown Atlanta, I found my way to working in gun violence prevention. And that is background checks on all gun sales, red flag laws, things like that. I saw that my Black athletes had to live differently from their white counterparts up the road. And so when we moved to Florida in 2015, I became the state leader for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. And through that work, I spent a lot of time in Tallahassee with a lot of legislators and found out that people that make our laws don't necessarily understand what they're doing. And the political process, the making laws, the improving people's lives legislatively was really appealing to me. So as many times as people told me to run for office when I had a toddler, there's no way that I could run for office when I had a toddler. So after I lost my husband and my son, I sat in front of the water for 6 months, and I got an alert on my phone that said Matt Gaetz had filed a federal stand your ground bill. And I knew right then, I stood up and I said, self, there's nobody better to fight him on this particular issue. When he passed or fought for stand your ground in Florida and passed that bill, our gun homicide rate went up 32%. And I just couldn't see that happen nationally. So I decided I was going to run for Congress.
So let's go into the Moms Demand Action and the Stand Your Ground bill and stuff like that. For those who might not be familiar with it, we're from a very pro Second Amendment place. A lot of people are very scared of people taking their guns that they legally own. I remember having to go get a concealed carry, and now you don't even need that in Florida. You can just kind of conceal carry on your own, I think.
You can.
So what would you tell Republicans or moderates who are hesitant about losing any sort of Second Amendment rights?
I would say that if it's in the Constitution, I'm always going to support it. I support the Second Amendment. I support your right to own a weapon. What I don't support is domestic abusers owning weapons, felons owning weapons. I believe that we need a secure background check system that also includes mental health issues because we all know people that shouldn't own weapons, right?
Yes.
I mean, and I know family members of mine that shouldn't own a weapon. It's a process that people should have to go through. Red flag laws, we know, save lives. For instance, the Parkland shooting, if somebody if the mother was able to remove those weapons from that child before he went to school and shot 23 students, that's a life-saving policy that we should support. I am 100% for people owning weapons if they can own them, if they can pass a background check.
So what is it about the stand your ground law that you don't like?
It was overused, has been overused, and
Overused in what way?
overused in that, I understand the Castro doctrine. If somebody comes into your house, if somebody is a threat to you, being able to use your firearm, I completely and 100% understand that. I think it's way too vague for us for say something happens in a parking lot. Somebody says they feel threatened or they saw a brandished weapon, or I think it's way too vague of a law for it to be life-saving.
Okay.
I actually have a story about standing ground law. So when I was 18 years old, I was pulled into a homicide trial as a witness. A friend of mine was killed. Another friend was almost killed, and the guy was arrested for attempted murder. It was a big lawsuit. It was all over the news. And his defense that he actually was not killed with a firearm. He was killed with a knife, an illegal 13-inch butterfly knife. And he stabbed these two boys who were 18 years old, and he was like 23. And he was a Marine, I believe, a military member, and was in the bushes. They went to drop off a young girl at her house from a party, and he jumped out of the bushes and he stabbed them. And he used a stand your ground law to say he was justified in doing that because it was his girlfriend's house and they were dropping her off and he felt threatened. So
Really?
it was interesting that was a defense. He ended up losing. That defense was not applicable, and he's now serving life. But I can see what you mean, in that people can assert that defense for things where it might, be a little much.
Exactly.
And I guess that's where you can get your wires crossed with somebody that's, a lifelong Republican, pro Second Amendment and all that. You just hear stand your ground law and you're like, hell yeah, I'm going to stand my ground. And
Right.
you don't hear about the vagary of the actual verbiage in the bill or
Exactly.
the law.
And there is due process. With all of our laws, there is due process. I just believe that it is, in Florida, it's become such a Superman cape for gun owners, that we don't look at the times that stand your ground is not an effective defense for shooting someone point blank.
How do you feel about people having a medical marijuana card and then also having a concealed carry? Because I remember, and maybe that's not even an issue anymore, but when I was living there, I had to decide.
It's still an issue.
is,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is, and I don't agree with it. I don't agree that you can't own a firearm and have a medical marijuana license. That doesn't make sense. Those two things don't jive.
Yeah,
You might as well not let them walk into a liquor store at that rate.
Exactly.
absolutely.
100%.
Going back to your other platform points, what are some of the things that people really want to see change that you think are your priorities this election cycle?
Well, it is, the people are telling me affordability, affordability, affordability. It is the cost of living, the cost of groceries, and now the cost of gas. People are struggling. People are struggling with homeowners insurance in Florida. It's a huge issue. I'm not sure if that's an issue here in Alabama, but it's a huge issue in Florida. My opponent took $2 million from the insurance companies instead of regulating them. And so our insurance problems for homeowners insurance has become a huge issue. It's pushing people out of their homes, homes that they've owned for 30 and 40, 50 years, and now they can't afford their homeowners insurance. Insurance all the way around. Health insurance is the second thing that is causing people to, it's the highest bill that they're paying every month as opposed to their mortgage or their car payment is health insurance. My personal health insurance went from $250 a month to $1,000 a month, which is unsustainable. There are things and subsidies that the government can provide. And I realize that the difference between me and Republicans is that I believe in social programs. I believe that the federal government could help us with some of those things. And I want to preface that by saying we pay our taxes. We pay a lot of taxes to the federal government. We should be getting that money back. We should be getting the services that we need that help us, that are helping our daily lives. So don't I wish Republicans wouldn't look at those programs as something that that is being given away to people. It's money that we put in to the system so that we can get something back out of the system. And the third thing is our VA hospital. We have a VA clinic in Pensacola that services the entire Gulf Coast. We have to send people to Biloxi or Jacksonville if they need surgery. We deserve a full service VA hospital because we have the most concentration of veterans of any county in Florida or any other district in Florida, and second in the nation. And my opponent, Jimmy Patronis, wants to order a study, whether we need one or not, when I can tell you, we don't need to waste time on a study. And we know the numbers, and we know that our vets deserve better.
So wanted to touch on a couple of things. The health insurance part. So I'm a Republican, and I think we actually need some sort of universal health care, and that, breaks me from the mainstream party a little bit, but it's absolutely insane that we live in a world where people are dying because they can't afford to get care and go to the hospital. And here in Alabama, I feel like it's even worse in some ways. I've never really had health insurance. I can't even remember the last time I did when I was like 25.
Right.
Because, once you turn 26, you lose your parents' benefits. And then it's like, in what world does this generation, I guess my generation of millennials or whatever, have the ability to pay $1,000+ a month for insurance? It's not feasible. And then I ended up, getting really sick. I had actually surgery on I had an ovarian teratoma that had to get taken out. I got really sick, had to pay for it all out of pocket. And I had to price shop and go to Louisiana and save up like $5,700 to have my ovary cut open and the tumor taken out and everything.
Oh, wow.
It was insane to me that I couldn't find anywhere in Florida to do it under like $10,000 or in this area. I had to go there and pay a cash price and like work with somebody independently. It was a terrible process, but it was like either that or die.
Yeah.
Like, what is your choice?
Exactly. And medical debt is also a huge problem for people. I don't think, and speaking of universal health care, I don't say universal health care because it pisses off Republicans. So the way I describe it is, so Medicare has one pay scale. So if you and I go to physical therapy, we both have different insurance, and they give you an ice bag, and your ice bag costs $30 and my ice bag costs $100 because our insurance companies negotiated different prices for that thing. That's true of medications. That's true of emergency room visits. It's true of any kind of service you get from a doctor. What I'm saying is, if it's good enough for Medicare to be on one pay scale, then why can't all insurance companies be on one pay scale? Because you wouldn't take your car in to get fixed and have just say, fix it and I'll pay you whatever at the end. But that's what's happening to us. They don't tell us what you go in for a colonoscopy and you don't know you have a $300 copay, or you don't know that the imaging is going to be separate from it at a private radiology company just to read the colonoscopy. They don't tell you those things up front. We need upfront pricing with our health care because that it's necessary for transparency to make sure that we can avoid medical debt.
Yeah, because I've gone to the hospital several times with anxiety, thinking I'm having a heart attack because the symptoms are hard to distinguish.
Right, yeah.
And I came out of pocket $1,200 or $1,400 for the ER for them to say, "Oh, good news, you're not having a heart attack." But I still got a surprise bill that I didn't even realize that I had received, and it just is on my credit report as I didn't pay. After I came out of pocket, I had to come up and beg for money trying to come up with that original $1,400. Well, here's this whole other bill that you didn't even realize you had that's tagged on your credit report for even more. Why can it not just be upfront?
Yep. That is the problem with healthcare. And we all have to have it. We all have to have some sort of healthcare. And if we don't, we put a undue burden on our healthcare system, because if we don't have primary care doctors, if we don't have preventative treatment, then we treat the emergency room like our primary care. If you don't have a primary care doctor or an urgent care, which is made for urgent care problems, and emergency rooms are made for for emergency problems. But we see that undue weight on our civilian health care that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I have an autoimmune disease too, and living in Alabama, even living in Florida, it was kind of bad, but I have to drive to Florida to see the specialist. We don't have any specialists here. I have to pay for the primary to get the referrals. I have to pay for the specialist to get this. I have to pay for the labs. I have to do it all independently, and it's a very high price tag. And to get the meds I need are $1,700 a month. I actually got them through the pharmaceutical company through a patient assistance scholarship program because I wrote a really strong essay about why I needed this for my quality of life.
Yeah.
But not everybody's going to sit there, navigate that, take the time to do that. I just did it because I'm really motivated to get what I need to have a normal life. But
most people don't even know that's an option.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to jump through hoops to be able to be healthy enough to live a life.
And pay your bills.
And pay your bills.
And the homeowners insurance you mentioned, so last cycle, there was a Republican candidate who ran against Jimmy Patronis. What, John Michael Montgomery? What was his name? Michael something.
It's Johnny Michael Thompson.
Yeah, so that's him.
Yeah,
Young
his
guy.
brother is running for, as a Democrat this time
Oh, that's interesting.
in
I didn't
House
know that.
District 2. You had him on.
I liked him. He was young and he went to Yale, was very smart, and he was talking about that home insurance issue, and nobody else was talking about that. And I think for some people, because a lot of us don't own homes,
Right.
we're renters and we're living in this real
Millennial
world.
problem.
Yeah, it's not registering with us, but it was an issue that people brought up. And he, aside from you, you're the second person I've heard mention that. So, I think that's notable.
Yeah.
How much of that has to do with just being in a strong hurricane zone versus everything else?
Well, it has to do with, we're in, but it affects everybody in Florida, no matter how close you are to the coast or not. And the problem with our insurance is reinsurance. So most people don't understand what reinsurance is. Reinsurance is insurance for the insurance companies. And that's why our insurance is so expensive. They have to protect themselves in case we get the big storm. And the thing about insurance companies employ climate scientists. They know that the big one's coming. They know that it's going to happen. Our government, would like to think that, climate science is not real, but the insurance companies sure pay for those people to find those things out. What my plan is, and what I agree with Jared Moskowitz on, the federal government should back up that 25% of reinsurance for our homeowners insurance so that insurance companies don't have to get their own insurance companies. The federal government backs them. So if we do have the big storm and it costs way too much to fix it, the federal government steps in, which is essentially what FEMA does.
So, example, Houma, Louisiana is basically dying out as a town because insurance companies are moving out because they don't want to insure that area anymore because of all the damage that they get from storms. Are there places in Florida along the coast that are like that?
Well, we have places in Florida that are washing away. South Florida is really bad. The Miami area and their flooding situation is horrible. The Keys got hit really bad last time around. I don't know if you saw what I don't even remember what storm it was, but it just took Naples out. The last big, it might have been Ian. And it took out Sanibel Island and most of Naples, which is a super rich part of Florida. But that just jacks all of our prices back up again.
Right.
And the storms aren't going to go away. In fact, they're going to get worse.
Yeah, it was scary quiet last year, so I'm really nervous for this season.
Me too. I thought about that the other day when I got an alert from WEAR that said, and here's your storm information. And all that stuff. I'm like, oh, crap, is it that time again already?
Yeah.
I worked the Panama City mayor's race right after Michael, like the week or so after we were there, and I did drone footage, and I'll never forget it. The drone footage was just telling. The Panama City was destroyed after Michael. There was nothing left. It was just really
Mexico
sad.
Beach, too. I don't even think Mexico Beach ever
I remember
rebounded
hearing about that. Yeah.
as well as they should have.
So
Because insurance companies only pay out at 49%.
yeah, there's a lady here that works in town, and she and her family moved from Florida, and they lived in an RV because the insurance gave them so minimal. They couldn't get a new house after that. They were just like, we're gonna live in an RV and we're gonna come to Alabama. It is unfortunate.
Yeah, 49% is what the average insurance company pays out
That's
in the big
asinine.
storm. Yep. Yep. So if you own your home, you have to think about whether you'd rather save your money instead of pay insurance. You have to have insurance if you have a mortgage, but if you own your home, you might just want to keep that money in a piggy bank because you'll at least know what you can, you have to spend.
Right.
So I want to talk a little bit about party politics, I guess. We
All right.
have had, we're almost at, what are we at, like 60 something episodes we've had of our podcast now. We're in season 2. We've interviewed mostly Republican candidates because that's where we live. We have had some Democrats on. And when we do, we sometimes get attacked and they're like, oh, you guys are, it's funny because we interviewed like Congressman Barry Moore and I got called a fascist. And then we interviewed Chig Martin, who's running for governor here as a Democrat. And we got called like, what did they call us? Crazy liberal,
Something like that.
Democrats, whatever they want to
Right,
throw out.
right.
And we're just kind of,
Libtards. That's a
yeah, whatever they want to say. And it's like, why can we not sit down and talk to people of a different party without it turning into some sort of war? I don't understand it at all because I think there's more in common than there is apart a lot of the time. And we try to emphasize that here. And we were saying in the last episode, that's was his idea, but like the color purple is like when red and blue come together because we need more unity. And I think there's just so much division. It's really nasty right now.
Yeah.
And I absolutely hate it. So what are some things you're doing to help unify, I guess, within a predominantly red area?
Yeah, I think that what we have to achieve to do, and I tell when I walk in a room full of Democrats, the first thing I tell them is you have to have conversations with people who don't agree with you. That's the only way that we're getting past this this part in our political discourse that we feel like we can't sit down and have a conversation with each other without hating each other. And that's true of Democrats and Republicans. Each side or faction has deep disdain for the other side for literally no reason other than we have different beliefs. Now, I don't think that we're that different. I think that we can all agree that we're all going broke, that we need better health care, goods are too expensive, and gas prices are too high. Now, we may have different ways of solving those problems, but if we don't sit down at the table and try to understand each other and try to come at it with both sides of the idea, knowing that neither side is going to leave with everything they want, then I think then we can come to some solutions. That is the art of the deal, is compromise. And compromise is how you get to making lives better for people. That's all that's the only goal I have, is to make life better for the people of Northwest Florida. And that's not, I want to make life better for just Democrats. I want to make life better for all people that live in Northwest Florida, because that's what we deserve. We live in a beautiful place. I have beautiful neighbors. We have a gorgeous part of the world, and we should be able to figure out our problems together, not against each other.
We have to.
Yeah. I mean, my father was a Republican. My mother was a Democrat. I've been doing this my entire life.
How was Thanksgiving?
Perfect. It was fine back then. I mean, they got divorced, but still.
Uh-oh.
But still, there's a way to have a conversation about politics and policy without hating each other. And I think that, a lot of the cultural, hot button issues, transgender athletes and stuff have taken us far, far away from what we really need to be worrying about. And that's the economy. And that is our health care. That is our cost of living. It is about the things that matter to us, the things that truly are going to make our lives better.
And I really hate the government shutdowns when one side's like filibustering the other. And I feel like nobody wins in that case. And it's just unfortunate because, I have one of my best friends works for TSA and she's sitting there working without a check. And she's literally having to borrow money and take out loans to live because we're not paying TSA. And, people aren't getting their benefits, and life just doesn't stop because the government stops. And I don't care what it takes. I don't I don't like them shutdowns at all. I think everybody kind of feels that
I
way.
don't like for our economy to be tied to a government shutdown. I don't like for our economy to have to hinge on whether people get to go to work the next day and get a paycheck. There's got to be a better way to do it. And when I get to Washington, we're going to figure it out.
So I like my current congressman here in Alabama more than I liked living in your district because I got a lot of response when I reached out to his office. Our Congressman is Barry Moore. He's one of the most conservative congressmen. But politics aside, I like that I could call his office and get a response on an issue. That's really like, as a constituent, what we care about. He actually got voted, like out of all the members of Congress, like number 1 or 2 for workplace, like what was it, workplace happiness or something. Like he got like quality of the workplace was like really high up there of every member of Congress, and his staff is just incredible. And I think that, you know, sometimes, and I wrote that as something he wrote online. I was like, yeah, he, you know, will talk with you and not at you, and he responds to you. And they were like, well, you're just in the Trump cult, so of course you think that. Of course he replies to you. I'm like, I'm not in the Trump cult. I'm literally just a person who called the office and got a response. And I hate that when we're arguing, everything goes to that. And that being said, I wanted to mention there is a Republican running right now for Congress here who labels himself a moderate Republican, which is unfortunate because to take a primary coming out as a moderate Republican is quite a dangerous game. Yeah. He's getting slammed right now for just saying, I don't appreciate that Trump did that Jesus post or whatever, like the post where he was looking like Jesus. They're ripping him up and they're like...
on him all over the comments. And it's disheartening because I'm a lifelong conservative Republican, but I never supported Trump from the beginning because I didn't like his divisiveness. But the Democratic Party completely lost me during COVID with mandatory vaccines and masking and the shutdown for however many months. And so I'm like politically homeless. Yeah. And I don't know what the answer to come back to center is.
There are more people like you than there are like me or like Republicans on the other side. There are more people in the middle than we like to talk about on either end. Sure. And it's the people on either side, you know, on the far left and the far right, who get the most attention because they make the most noise. There are people like you and like a ton of other people. I would imagine that you're politically in tune, but there are a ton of people in this world that aren't tied to the news cycle every day. Right. They don't really care. They just want to make sure politics don't affect their lives. They want politics to work for them, not against them. Right. And then when they look at the discourse between the two parties, they don't want to have anything to do with either side.
It's downright disgusting.
I totally get that. I 100% get that. And I have to tell you that if we're talking about the parties, let me give you my thoughts on the Democratic Party. So when I ran in an R plus 37 district. Trump won our district by 37 points. And I didn't have much of a shot. I didn't have much of a shot at all, but I went and I put it out there. And you know that I never had people that were evil to me. You know, I've had people shake their heads at me before, but I was never talked down to. I was never, you know, I've had people say, I disagree with you. But it's possible. It's possible to have that. Now, the Democratic Party did not support me at all. When I said I'm running in an R plus 37 district and I said I'm running against Matt Gaetz, I thought because Matt Gaetz is such a polarizing figure that the Democratic Party was going to swoop in and say, how can we help you? They didn't. They absolutely did not. And then when I ran in the special election, it was the only thing, my election in Florida 6, were the two special elections going on in the entire country. And so I would have thought that the Democratic Party, the National Democratic Party, would have come in, thrown me a couple bucks, whatever. Crickets. The state party only gave me van access. So $10,000 worth of van access. I gave them that $10,000 back, and I didn't need the National Democratic Party's money. I needed their surrogates. I needed people, like I wanted Raphael Warnock to come to Pensacola and hold souls to the polls. That's what I wanted. But I couldn't get any surrogates from the Democratic Party to show up because they don't want to be a part of a losing campaign, and they don't want you to take their donors. Now, I don't know what it's like on the Republican side. And but it seems like the Republican Party does such a better job of stumping for each other, lifting up other candidates. You know, Matt Gaetz would go to Wisconsin and wherever else he could to stump for some House race. Democrats have to do a better job at that. But on the other side, I think Republicans have lost their way. I think that, and you're probably going to take some flack for this. I miss Reagan Republicans. I miss fiscally responsible Republicans. That's what my father was. And I think we need fiscally responsible Republicans to keep Democrats under, so we don't spend so much money.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am like a Republican who's leaning libertarian. I'm a small government person, and that I think I keep it consistent. I don't understand the Republicans that say small government, but then they try to legislate everything like that's your choice in life. And I'm figured like, I don't know about that. So, I am a health freedom person, and I am a person who appreciates the government not being involved, as little as possible in our lives. And then I see the flip side, like our governor, Kay Ivey, makes a law about marijuana, like every chance she gets, she'll, this is wrong, this is illegal vapes, this is that. But at the same time, at one point, she supported mask mandates and all this other stuff.
And
it's just very strange.
She called people that were vaccinated normal and said there's a difference between unvaccinated and normal people. I'm paraphrasing, but that was a quote from her.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's sad to make, blanket statements about people like that. I don't agree with you on the mask. I think that was the only reason that we got as far as we did, because I still wear a mask on an airplane. I'm one of those freaks because I don't want to get a cold. I believe in vaccines, and I know that our new health secretary has done everything to fight against vaccines. And I would encourage people to still get your childhood vaccines. If you're an adult and you don't want a vaccine, that's your jam. But like, childhood vaccines are necessary so that we can keep childhood death down.
Sure, just don't take our jobs over them like doing that.
Yeah. I'm inclined to agree with you. I try to think back to COVID, and I think we've all really tried really, really hard to forget what COVID was like. But that's when our economic downtrod started, right?
Yes.
So our supply chain was screwed up. Prices went up. Our supply chain got figured out, and prices still stayed up. And then the Biden administration came in, and we just flatlined. It didn't improve much, and if we did, it was slightly. So people elected Donald Trump thinking that he was, going to be great for the economy.
They wanted that $1.50 gas again from 2016, and it just has not happened.
Has not happened. And then tariffs shot everything else back up, and the Supreme Court has said, well, tariffs are illegal, but our prices went up during tariffs, and they still haven't gone back down because they're artificially inflated. And there needs to be a check on companies that want to take advantage of the American people.
Namely oil.
Yes.
If we're claiming that we have the most oil in the world and everybody's coming to us, then why the hell is it still as expensive as it is?
Yeah. That's what Trump says, that we have lots and lots of oil. But if that's the case, then why is it, I think I heard the average today was $4.12 a gallon.
Now, how do you feel about Patronis trying to do the moratorium on the Gulf drilling?
Oh, I'm 100%. If that's the one thing that we can agree on, it's drilling in the Gulf. I still call it the Gulf of Mexico. The whole reason that the Trump administration changed that is because there is a moratorium on drilling in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
They renamed it Gulf of America.
Yeah.
The Gulf of America so that they can drill. And I think we all remember, I didn't live in Pensacola in 2010, but I drove from Atlanta to come down and help with the oil spill cleanup because my grandparents managed a hotel out on Pensacola Beach in the late 60s and early 70s. So I spent most of my time there as a child because my parents were public school educators. And if we ever wanted to vacation, it had to be there. And that place is so special to me that I felt an obligation to come and help.
I will say that I worked that cycle a bunch, and I agree with you that the Democratic Party has maybe put up some questionable candidates to go against Matt. And then later, the couple times before you, I was really kind of disappointed in the quality of candidate. And I feel like they did think that district was a lost cause.
Yeah.
And it really is unfortunate because there is so much we can agree on, and the environment is one right now in Alabama too. So people don't realize like how awesome Alabama is environmentally and how diverse it is. And one of the big issues here is north of the county, they're putting in a huge solar farm. And they're destroying 4,500 acres of wetlands to do that at the Tensaw River Delta. And people are really up in arms about it. And we're in a very red area, but they're all like, the company that's doing it is called Silicon Ranch, and they're putting in like, this is a Meta solar farm to like power Meta and stuff.
They said that they fully expected that reaction out of California, but never Alabama. For the people to come against them like that.
Yeah, that's what the CEO said.
Well, when it's happening in your backyard, you have a completely different take on it. Who wants their wetlands destroyed?
And I understand we need solar power. No one's against solar power. I think they're against a huge amount destroying these wetlands in this particular area. And then they're popping up all over the state and other places. It's just the rise of AI and the destruction of our waterways and our environment over that. It's such a double-edged sword because on one hand, it's a great tool, but then, you know, I use it. I'm guilty of using it sometimes for stuff, for research, for helping, you know, I have arthritis. So sometimes I don't want to type a lot. I'll just like voice text or whatever. But, you know, in the end, what is the cost it's going for us? So how do you feel about like this struggle as we move into like modernization with AI and the resources it might potentially deplete?
I think that AI is, I think everybody's up kind of like, AI. Yeah. I use ChatGPT every once in a while, but not, I don't think that it is an evil tool. I think that it is a tool that we have to get under control. Now, these farms that they're putting out, you know, those are still, the data's not completely in on these farms that they're putting out for the AI generation. You know, they're saying there's conflicting information about how much power they take, how bad it affects all the land around these data farms, what it's going to do to the communities around the data farms. So the jury's still out on what's going to happen with that, and there needs to be more research done, especially before they throw it right in the middle of, you know, around wetlands. We don't know what it's going to do to groundwater. There simply hasn't been enough studies.
Yeah, the one they're building here, it says they're going to last 40 years. The solar farm's going to be 40 years of longevity from the panels and everything. And it's like, okay, for wetlands that have been there since the beginning of time, what about when that 40 years is up? Then it's destroyed. Like, you can't get it back. And another issue I'm sure, or I know that you're facing because I lived there in Escambia County or in the first district, overdevelopment, or arguably development/overdevelopment/economic development.
Clear cutting.
It is a huge problem. In Alabama, we're like the fastest growing, we're definitely the fastest growing county in Alabama, Baldwin County, where we are on the beach and with all this. And they say 17 people a day move here. And the infrastructure definitely cannot keep up. And every single candidate we've had in has talked about that. But I moved from Pensacola like a little over a year or maybe almost 2 years ago. And from where I lived off Highway 98, I was telling somebody the other day, there's now Whataburger, there's now Publix, there's now Wawa, there's now like all of this stuff that popped up literally within 1 year. All of the forest that was there is pretty much gone. And if it's not gone, there's a sign saying there's a zoning hearing, it's about to be rezoned, and they're about to stick in D.R. Horton. It is, how do you fight that? And how is on a congressional side, I mean, that's a lot of county stuff, but on a congressional side, what can we do to prevent some of this development, like kind of overtaking our world?
I'm going to use a bad word that Republicans hate. Regulation. We have to regulate clear cutting. We have to regulate, especially, I don't know specific to Baldwin County, but in Pensacola, Gulf Breeze, Fort Walton Beach, the concern is the red clay that they're bringing in. The red clay that they bring in to put over sand to build things up, and it is seeping into our grasslands and killing off the grass and mussels and killing off oyster farms. And so that's a very specific issue. We have to regulate what companies can do when they come in. I would like to pass a bill to give tax cuts to people who want to build on existing structures. So how many times do you drive down the road and see warehouses that have been abandoned and they're falling down? Well, they have a concrete slab. They were plumbed at one time. They have electricity that goes to those places. Why are we letting places collapse and not giving people tax breaks to use those places instead of clear cutting? It's because it's cheaper to cut down a bunch of trees and put a slab down. Well, if we give tax incentives to make sure that people build on existing structures, that does twofold. It's recycling. It's recycling, and it's not cutting down any more freaking trees.
I would have never known that red clay was toxic to marine life. Mm-hmm. We're too busy arguing about who uses what bathroom.
Exactly. That is for sure.
I agree about that's a good idea for the tax cuts to repurpose buildings, because I know, I'm from West Pensacola, that Navy Boulevard corridor, the Highway 98, the Warrington area has a ton of dilapidated old buildings. Why are we not making that sort of a gateway into the base that, people on the base and tourists, they have to drive by there to get downtown. There's great waterways around there, but it's totally impoverished looking and dilapidated.
Yep.
And instead they're building a Hard Rock downtown. Like, let's focus everything down there and ignore West Pensacola, which is absolutely beautiful and has a ton of natural resources, but it's just like it doesn't exist. And like you said, nobody cares. There's still a big slab where the KFC or the Checkers used to be up there. Like, there's nothing there, but on a Highway 98, a couple blocks down by the ER, let's build everything up.
Then they build a brand new structure instead of using the existing structures that we have. And I think that's a shame. I think we can repurpose those places for affordable housing. I don't know if you're familiar about with everything that's happening with the Old Baptist Hospital and the destruction of that hospital that could very well be used, as a serviceable VA hospital.
When I was in Pensacola, I worked with the Homeless Reduction Task Force. I was their coordinator for 2 years, and there's obviously a very big problem with homelessness and with opioids and fentanyl, and you can just drive and see it all over the corners. And now I think that, I guess, what would be your opinion on why that is so prominent in Pensacola, and now it's sort of seeping out into the surrounding areas and counties, I believe, where it wasn't necessarily seen before? Is that just, the state of our nation and we just see it more? Or why Pensacola in particular? Because it seems to be really bad in that concentration.
Oh, Pensacola is has the highest amount of opioid death and addiction than any other county in the state of Florida per capita. And so Florida made this big deal with the pharmaceutical companies, the opioid crisis with the, what was that drug that everybody was on that was, anyway, with the pharmaceutical companies. And they got a big settlement out. And the way that they divided it between the 67 counties was based on population and not based on need. So Pensacola got virtually no money to solve their problems.
Is that fentanyl you're talking about?
It was fentanyl, but it's Oxycontin. That's what the Oxycontin settlement that Florida got. And so if they'd have looked at where our problems were coming from, if they had looked at the need that we had, we would have gotten more money. If they'd have based it on the need instead of the size. Because we've talked about drugs coming over the southern border. We've talked about it to death. But only 10% of fentanyl comes over the southern border. It all comes through air or by boat. And what do we have around us? Water.
Yeah.
That's just a theory of mine, but it doesn't. I would like to say that our law enforcement is not incompetent here. So why is it that it's trifold in Escambia County than it is in any other county in Florida? I'm not sure, but I would imagine that it's coming in through an unconventional waterway.
One of our very first videos, we talked about they're building this pedestrian bridge that goes over the canal here. And we talked about potential human trafficking occurring on the water and drugs coming over the water. Because one of my many jobs is working, in maritime brokerage, and I see barges a lot. And I've always who's regulate people just come and go over in these barges sometimes. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty feasible.
Yeah, that's my assumption. It's not proven yet, but I would have to get on the inside. I have to get the job first before they let me know that information. I'm trying.
So I want to talk a little bit too about your commercial, which was one of the best commercials I've seen. Anybody out there, I'll link it in the comments. You got to watch her promo ad for her congressional run. It's really funny. It's kind of taking Jimmy Patronis on a tour, since he's not an actual resident, and showing him, what it's like to live in the area. How did you get that concept, and what has the response been to that ad?
Well, it's been great. I've had Republicans and Democrats alike tell me how much they enjoyed it, and I think that we all needed some sort of laugh. And because all political commercials these days are vote for me because, everybody's sick of it. Everybody tunes out from those regular political commercials, right? Mm-hmm. And we just wanted to do something that pointed out the fact that he does not live in the district. He never has ever lived in the district. He doesn't know the people. How do you represent the people of the district that you don't live in if you don't know them? He's from Panama City, which is a completely different vibe from our corner of Northwest Florida. But in all seriousness, and it was a hilarious commercial. We kind of wanted to put it together. I saw a Welcome to Mississippi commercial on TV, and I was like, that's what I want to do. Where you point out all the good things about Mississippi, so you want to come visit Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it'd be really funny to give Jimmy a tour of his own district, showing him the awesome things about our district, things that I know very well. And I did poke fun at him. The only thing that Jimmy Patronis has been in the news for since he took office a year ago was the fact that he got a speeding ticket on 3 Mile Bridge. Yeah. If you're from the area, then you know that on the Gulf Breeze side of 3 Mile Bridge, you slow down to 35 miles an hour because they're sitting there and they will get you. Well, he didn't slow down. And so he went to social media and did interviews on the local news about how it was a speed trap, and how he was criticizing the cops when he's supposed to be law enforcement all the time, support your law enforcement. But he was very critical of them for that. So I had to poke fun at him about that, because if you're from there, you know it.
It was a brilliant commercial. It was really well done.
Yeah, and it was, in all seriousness, I mean, it was a funny commercial, but in all seriousness, things haven't changed. In fact, he's made things worse. The cost of living, the cost of housing and insurance prices. He's done nothing to make life better, and he's done nothing to help our vets.
That's true. On the Republican side, the people I know with the VA and the Republicans who have had to deal with him cannot stand him, and they're very unhappy. And those billboards that are going up are absolutely like, Jimmy cares. No, he does not. He has not shown that with his actions, at least. I don't understand that at all. But we're about to have a governor here who doesn't live even in the state of Alabama. So Tommy Tuberville, he's from Florida. And
Tommy Tuberville lives in Florida?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't want him.
There's a lawsuit. There's a lawsuit right now challenging his residency because all his congressional receipts have him flying to his house in Florida, and he has like one house in Alabama that he uses, but it's like a secondary home. And there's people fighting against that, but no one's going to do anything about it.
Well, that was true of Matt too. Matt lived in California the last 2 years of his when he represented our district.
Yeah. I wish people actually elected people sometimes out loud to their district, just like, recognize who's out in the community doing things and who actually has a grasp of what's going on. And, I ran for city council here in Gulf Shores. I did not win. I ran against somebody who'd been there 29 years.
Really?
And
still got a third of the vote, though.
First, I feel like I was only lived here a year when I ran. And then I got, everybody told us they want to change. And in the end, the voter turnout's really low. It's really disappointing because they tell you online and to your face when you're out that they want change, but then they don't show up to the polls. And then name recognition of someone who's been there for 30 years. Like, it was so, disheartening to feel like you're really advocating for something and you feel like you have momentum, and then it's like a slap back down, like, sorry, you haven't been here decades. And it's like,
I ran into that a lot running against a Gates
yeah,
in Northwest Florida. And it's not so much that people loved Matt Gates, that they loved his father.
right.
Don Gates is a pillar of the community. And Matt just couldn't keep himself out of trouble.
I'm aware. He had all the opportunity in the world with the AG opportunity. A lot of people were banking on him to be AG that had worked really hard, that had nothing to do with his outside choices. And that's a bummer that I know that some very hardworking people that kind of squashed their opportunities too. So
I do feel bad for the other people, but that ethics report should have come out before the election that I had with him. I don't know that it would have swayed any sort of, but we knew that the ethics report was going to come out before the election happened. But we knew it was going to come out after the election. And that was unfortunate because I don't think the voters were able to make a decision based on all of the information.
So ethics really matter in a congressman, as we're seeing now with Eric Swalwell.
Oh, God, yeah.
Not to them.
Yeah.
No, that's
Principally.
true.
Yeah, they should matter.
It does.
To people electing
It should
them,
matter.
and they should matter in office. So, what can you say about your ethics and your, I guess,
Right.
attitude in upholding, a professional demeanor and being ethical in office?
What I tell people is what you see is what you get. I am, my mother says that I'm incapable of lying, and I pretty much am. I'm very face value. I understand that people get the job and they take it for granted and they break some rules and all that other stuff. People have said to me over and over again, Gay, just do this. And I'm like, nope, it's against the rules. I'm a rule follower. I think that the fact that I've lost my family, I lost my husband to ALS and I lost my 9-year-old to a terminal brain tumor, gives me something else to aspire to. It kind of puts what's important in place. It is only wanting to do good things for good people. I have no political aspirations past running for Congress. And I don't want to be there forever. I believe in term limits, and I believe that that's why we don't have ethics right now. It's because we don't have term limits in Congress. You get the seat. Having incumbent behind your name on a ballot is half the battle. And once you have incumbent and you slide into that seat and you continually hold that seat down, you can do whatever you want to. And I think that you shouldn't be able to stay in the House of Representatives more than 8 years. I don't think you should be able to stay in the Senate for more than 12.
I definitely think you have a unique perspective that appeals to a lot of people because nothing was truly handed to you. Like, you've overcome a lot. And I think it says a lot about your character. I think that, people should look at a person as they are, the complete person, well-rounded, their experiences in life, their background. It's such a complex situation. And we really vet like every candidate. Like, we really sit down with people for lengthy amounts of time. We talk to everybody, even the people that they say, oh, look at 1%. Like, I don't care. I still want to hear from that person, what motivated them to run.
Yeah.
We had a candidate showcase here where we had congressional, lieutenant governor candidates, like everybody come out. We had 17 candidates show up to the Civic Center, and we
wow.
filmed it and hosted it.
Nice.
It was really awesome. So I really encourage people to do their research. And when it comes to your race, look into you, look into your background, the things you've overcome and what you've done to really make a difference in people's lives and do good after experiencing things that most people couldn't imagine. Like, it's commendable. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Do you want to tell people where they can find you online or where they can donate or learn more?
Absolutely. Go to gayforcongress.com, and check me out. I have all of my priorities listed. You can also sign a petition if you are a Florida voter and mail it to the P.O. box at the top. The petition is also online. You can go to my website also, see my hilarious commercial, and donate $5 or $10 because we rely on small dollar donors. I do not take corporate PAC money, to make any of this happen. So I appreciate your support.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.